Good afternoon, friends. Welcome to the STP training webinar, Defect Metrics for Organization and Project Health. Our speaker for the day is David Bialek. I'm Smita Mishra, a professional tester myself, and I'm excited to host you all and David on our STP trainings. David, I think you attended one of our STP conferences that was held at San Diego earlier, probably 2013 or so. So how was your experience and anything specific that you liked?
Yes, it was. It was 2013, and it's a pleasure to speak with you all today. First off, but yeah, it was 2013 in San Diego, California, and at the time, I was just starting to really dive into metrics overall. Thinking of productivity metrics and defect metrics, and it was actually a workshop, half-day workshop with Rex Black that we talked about metrics. So after that particular workshop, I came back to my company at that time, American Greetings, and I started coming up with a lot of the ideas that I'm going to be showing you today. So it was instrumental.
Very nice. That's probably the most important purpose of conference, having takeaways that you can take back to your organization. Good. So for all of our listeners today, let me tell you, we have our next conference coming up, Spring 2018 STP Con, to be held in the Newport Beach, California from April 9th through 12th next year. And our program committee has already selected the keynotes, the workshops, and the sessions. And you can actually view the selected workshops under the agenda section right now on the site. The overall program will be shortly out for you too. From what I see, the program actually looks really power-packed for testers. And the conference topics include automation, agile, performance, DevOps, mobile, security, leadership, strategy, and so much more. We typically have over 20 workshops and over 40 sessions for you to choose from. And the formats are around roundtables, case studies, hands-on exercises, and tool demos. As I mentioned, the complete program will be very soon published for you to explore at stpcon.com. And if you register before 31st of December, which is about 2 weeks from now, you get to save up to $500. So if you want to make some saving, go for it now. You can also use the discount code that is shown on the site on the screen right now. As STP is now expanding its offerings, we are coming up with new STP membership programs. The details will be out soon, so keep looking. And if you are on Twitter, please share the conference information and about this webinar with your followers and connections. If you hear something you like during the webinar, please tweet about it, and you can add our Twitter handle to your tweets, which is @SoftwareTestPro. Right before we start, few housekeeping points for the next 1 hour. All the attendees shall remain muted through the webinar. You can type in your questions and share them with us through your question box. We shall take them up after David is done with his presentation. The webinar shall be recorded and posted on the Software Test Pro site for the attendees to go through later. All right, so let's get started with the webinar today. A very warm welcome, David. We are very thrilled to have you with us today. And let me quickly introduce you for all of us here. David is the Manager of Quality Assurance Engineering at American Greetings. He's responsible for directing the quality assurance effort for all the software development there. During his 17-year IT career, he was a QA consultant for CompuWare and senior QA and BA with the Regional Income Tax Agency. David is currently on the board of the Northern Ohio Software Quality Assurance Association and has served on the board for the SID Network of Ohio. David lives in Ohio with his wife Kimberly and their 2 children. So, all right, David, a warm welcome again, and the floor is all yours now.
Thank you, Steve. I appreciate it. All right, everybody. So I'm going to go ahead and start my presentation and show my screen. I hope everybody can see, my screen out there. So, essentially, I'm really happy for the opportunity to be speaking with you today. And, thank you to Smita and to James over at, STP for selecting my webinar. So basically, Smita did a great job introducing you, so I'm just going to go past these couple slides. What you're seeing now is a logo that an amazing artist created for my QA department here at American Ingredients. And what it was is it shows our commitment to our gold standard of quality, and it's symbolic of American Ingredients. So I start here, the reason being is because, in my opinion, QA is very important. There's so many different aspects to the quality assurance career path, to the things that us as testers, and test managers do on a daily basis. And in addition, there's so many different areas of QA metrics. There's productivity metrics, manual test case success and failures, automation, success and failures, manual automation coverage metrics, test to code. You've all heard of code coverage metrics, but today we're really just going to discuss, just a very small portion of that, and that's just the defect, side of metrics. The kind of when I talked about, when I was talking about my conference experience, with STP, a few years ago, I was really looking, for something that I could really sink my teeth into, and show business people the value of quality assurance here, at my company, but really, quality assurance, as an industry, by the defects we open and analyzing, the results in order really to learn from them. I developed, this simple way that I'm going to show you. And by the way, I'm not selling anything, right? So I'm a manager of quality assurance. I was a tester, a senior tester before that, and then a senior BA before that. So I'm not selling anything. What I'm going to do is walk you through this presentation, to show you that simple way that I identified to track and analyze defect metrics. And I just want to also say that, for anyone out there, I am going to be showing a little bit of math. So I am going to be showing a little bit of math in some later slides. So if anyone's afraid of math, please shield your eyes at some of the graphs and some of the formulas I'm going to be showing. But so let's go ahead and get started. So basically for about the next 40 minutes, I'm going to talk about the D for bug metrics. I'm going to start, talking about the bug list, why that's a big deal, and why we should be looking at it. I'm going to be talking about root cause analysis, and I'm going to be talking about resolution analysis. And then for the majority, of the remaining time, within that 40, probably about, say about 60% of the time or so, we're going to be going through, a case study, where I'm just going to basically show you exactly how I set this this method up in my organization and these successes, and also the pitfalls, that came along with doing that. So let's go ahead and get started. So, really, why, discuss bug metrics? It's really, in my opinion, to track the progress of our QA organization. So we're tracking the progress of our projects. And it visibly shows the progress our QA teams are making, in all phases of the software development lifecycle. So when I'm tracking, progress, I think the key really for me with this has been, being accountable and being visible, to the organization. Measure of work, so that is the next thing why we're discussing bug metrics. So, we really as QA analysts don't exist in a vacuum. If it's in a hands-on agile environment or, a slow, I shouldn't say that, or steady calculated waterfall, we can easily show our work as the bugs start being logged as we test. So, we also use tools, but I know that from doing this presentation before, there's a lot of folks out there and a lot of companies out there that still, don't have tooling, that they're using as far as bug metrics and metric reporting. So, there's a lot of, folks using Excel or, other means. So, but as far as the tools, we can use the tools to show the bug log, in mid project flight, or literally, calculate and build as you go. As far as any measure of work, it's really fighting against any negative perceptions that may, exist in your organization. You know, can we show productivity, you know, in automation? It's kind of easy if we're using Stash or Git or another repo. Can we show exploratory productivity? But really, you know, in my mind, it's about showing productivity. You know, the next thing, why discussing bug metrics, is fragility. It shows really the fragility of our organization and our QA process of the fragility of three key things. The process that you're using. You know, one of the best quotes, you know, literally that I've ever heard in my career is, you know, a defect is just a bug in process. You know, meaning that if your process is solid, you should have no defects found during testing. You know, I like to, you know, really think that this means that as bugs pile up, you know, because I've never in my career, you know, that I've, you know, at least in recent memory, had a defect-free piece of software. You know, it shows your process, you know, really might need a good adjustment or a good chiropractor or a retrospective to iron out what your organization can do better, right? You know, the strength of your development to QA collaboration, I think, is also key. The fragility of your testing approach, method or automation, you know, because what if you have a defect, a deficit, you know, of bugs found in test versus a surplus of bugs found in prod post go live. The next thing, you know, why we're discussing defect metrics is really the strength. You know, this is great because it can show, you know, the strength of our process too, you know, showing how many defects and issues that we find, you know, in our pre-production environment or saving our customers, you know, a bad user experience really can show the strength of our QA testing in departments as well. So last but not least, you know, from why discussing it for me, I believe truly it's a disservice to your business if you do nothing. You know, we need to, you know, do bug metrics to inform our business, you know, of the value that we bring. So now that we have the whys, you know, let's move on to the next part of the journey. Our first pillar of health is our bug list. So, you know, this is one of the things that business people and internal users, in my opinion, are most interested in. I would think more than, you know, the tooling or the new automation that, you know, just came out yesterday, or, you know, something that we're all excited about as far as a new piece of Java code or a new piece of, you know, Python code, for example. You know, they're curious about what we found. You know, and they're curious about, you know, what we're doing in production to, you know, make sure that people don't get hung up. So, as far as bug lists are concerned, I talked a little bit about tooling, but essentially it's constructing, you know, the list or report. It's really keeping it simple. I know that sounds a little cliche, but it's really the truth. You know, also the biggest issue I see is criticality versus, you know, priority. You know, bug can be critical, right, to stopping flows, disrupting user experience, negative effects really to your site app or system, and also a critical bug can also not be a high priority, right, depending on what your business owner or PO would say. So, you know, classification really, you know, in my opinion, is, you know, paramount to the future of your data, period. You know, I would create checklists for you and your staff or colleagues and have a series of questions for them to ask themselves before choosing or ranking or create a small workflow. You know, and that goes really into, you know, some of the you know, software out there, you know, because it does a lot of this for you, right? You know, so you can go ahead and create, you know, some very custom, really good custom workflows. You know, using some of the products that are out in the market. You know, I'm thinking of coming to mind like Bugzilla, for example, Jira. It's also a very good one. You know, to creating those workflows, but, you know, making sure that you have a, you know, a common understanding, you know, of what those rankings are. Because if you do not lay down the groundwork for those common rankings, then you're going to have confusion across your business units or your customers. So I will go through those real quick. You know, so for critical, you know, for me, you know, in my business and, you know, what I'm doing as far as testing with my teams is it's really stopping payment or stopping users. I mean, that should be pretty, you know, pretty self-explanatory. You know, my flow's disrupted, you know, on my site app or system. My site app or system is unresponsive, or there's security holes. You know, easily identified on websites, 404s, 403s, halting user progression throughout the site after system period. Criticals are, I think, pretty easy to identify. I can't proceed. For highs, in my opinion, it's really just not stopping the flow. The user has a workaround, but it's still, high that we want to fix it. Medium, ease of use is affected, but workarounds are more plentiful, than highs. And then lows, not a minor, or it could be not a user issue. And then I add superficial in there for fun, and when I go over with my team and we talk about this stuff, I add in superficial because, for me, it's just superficial as us being QA, right? It's very, very, very small bugs that, the business owners, and developers might not, there might not be of any consequence, like a critical high or medium, but, thinking of all these things, and all these, common rankings, like I said, the key is really to make sure that you're in agreement with your stakeholders. So, already talked about, critical versus high priority. It's not indicative of priority. Think of these two items separately. Great. Just a very simplistic example. I'm sure everyone out there that's been in QA for a little bit of time or software development has seen something like this before. When I originally, I'm thinking of the method that I created, along with, my team and folks in my organization, Excel's not that far away for a lot of businesses out there. So it just gives you a really simple idea. If you don't have something like this, hey, there's a number one. This is my number with how many issues I have. When did I open it? What's my issue? What system is it on? What's my priority and what's my status? I would say with issues, the best thing that I would think of as far as how to create bug tickets, and that's really for another discussion, but I would honestly do them in more like a when-then format, and then keeping track of status. If you do not have a tool to do yourself, keeping track of status is huge. So,
hey,
yes.
David, sorry to interrupt.
Yep.
Is it possible for you to get a little closer, get a little closer to the mic? Seems like you're
Actually, I have
dropping
a
out.
headset. Is that better?
Yeah, this is much better. Yes, much
I have
better.
it, and the funny thing is, I have a headset on. Thank you. All right, so
Thank you.
all right, so all right, so for the next, so for that example, all right, so the next pillar I'm going to talk about. So now that our bug list is behind us, I'm going to talk about root cause. Essentially, root cause is providing definition to the bug or defect, and exploring technically and functionally the origins of the bugs. Really, in my opinion, not to repeat them again. It's to find potential weaknesses in shared classes and methods, find action items like future code enhancements, new test scripts and cases, collaborate with other members of the team. What is the fix? How do we prevent this issue from recurring? In the presentation that I have, there's very few, just lists of things to go over as far as definitions. But as far as root cause, I really want to share with you, the different root causes that I came up with along with my team, and then the things that the definitions for those, and basically walking through the example of how really when you take a look at your bugs and your bug list or defect list, how you can, when you look at them in their detail, you can then roll them up into logical groupings, or categories, and I'll show you what that looks like for my team. So these are the ones that we fought over, between the developers and between my QA folks. It is really, as far as root causes, once a bug is identified and it has been bug scrubbed, or that the team agrees, the QA team and or developers agree that the bug is valid, we go on to root cause analysis. So the first, thing is, obviously all of these root causes that we have down here that we can roll up, number one, requirement, so the bug can be traced to an incorrect, incomplete, misunderstood requirement. coding fix. This one typically tends to be huge. We end up seeing a lot of coding fixes out there. Compatibility, browser operating system device. That's huge as far as IoT testing coming up. If you're engaged in that as well, and with the forward-facing websites that myself and my team are engaged with, this is a very big concern of ours. System integration, was about found when code was moved across environments. Database change, environment. I'm not going to go through each one of them. Third-party code release, was a bug invalid? Was it a duplicate or site content? So we have a lot of the business that I'm in is greeting cards, right? So there's a lot of site content out there, a lot of interactive e-cards, for example. One of the major things, you're not going to see on any list here as far as root cause for me is miscellaneous. For me, I don't like miscellaneous because if you have a true miscellaneous for me, you should really take a look and see if you have other ones like that and add a new, root cause category, right? You can, I think one of the other ones that, we debated over and over again that can be exploded out is requirement, so that's really, one that's based on fact and really also on point of view. You can, for example, explode out the requirement root cause into different subsections. Hey, was it incorrect? Was it incomplete? Was it misunderstood? It really all becomes, a point of view. So, I caution on that one. Whereas compatibility bug, might be closer to fact, right? When it fails on IE 11, Windows 7 only, or if it fails on, the latest version of an iOS mobile browser, for example. So, again, these are the ones that work for my organization, and we're going to, and I would encourage you that if you're going to take any of these root causes, and I recommend that you do, and use them in your organizations, just make sure you talk to your QA teams and developers before you do that. So the next thing I'm going to move on to is resolution. So really, with resolution, our third pillar, it's the disposition of a bug or the action of the dev QA business interacting, with that bug. My opinion is you have to, assign resolution once the bug is closed, as a review, and resolutions along with root causes should be discussed, with your developers. I believe, that QA should never, exist and test alone. Not meaning that it should be, XP testing for QAs. I'm not saying that. But definitely, QA should, always be engaged with the developers they're working with, and always have the ability to ask questions and talk about root causes and resolutions. So here are the resolutions that my team and I came up with. So once the bug has been identified, the root cause has been identified, then the developer does the work, then we would start on we would identify a resolution. So that could be fixed, pretty straightforward there. Won't fix, which means that the problem has been acknowledged, but really no one has any plans to do about it, anything to do about it. For features and improvements, this really, can indicate something has been deemed out of scope. Duplicate, the issue will be handled with another bug. Addressing the same work, incomplete. It's one of my favorites. There isn't enough information to take action upon. For bugs that can't be reproduced, you cannot reproduce. So, and the reason I'm throwing that out there is because there's a difference between a developer or someone, even a QA colleague, not being able to reproduce a bug versus not enough information. Canceled. The next one is pretty obvious. The issue should have issued. The issue should have never existed, and works as designed, meaning the issue is in conflict with the design. So with all of those pillars put together, with our bug list, with our root cause, and with our resolution, we're really going to take it to the next step and try it out. When within the next 20 minutes or so, I want to go through, the case study that I conducted here at my organization. So with that, what I needed to do at the point in time when I instituted the defect metric practice, I needed to show value to QA, to my QA organization, plus my team velocity and effectiveness. That's what stood before me. I had a great tool at this time, and still do for tracking bugs. But what it came down to is too many disparate groups were involved in how issues were reported, or excuse me, too many groups had been involved in how issues were reported, leading to disparate results, just because of the way our organization structure was. Funny enough, data integrity was not a requirement at that time. No root cause or resolution analysis existed at this point. There was no bug reporting, literally none, except for looking at a supermassive list of issues that went back years. This is literally how I felt, all at once. So where did I start? So this goes along with the bug list. So where did I start? I created and dissected a bug list using Bugzilla, Jira, or any other products really to sift, through those bugs. The quantifications I used at that time: total number of bugs, the number of critical bugs, going through and cleaning and scrubbing, all of the different bugs that were out there, that went back years, right? So you have to take a hard look, at bugs that have been sitting out in the system. Literally, I've seen, my organization and other organizations I've been a part of, the bugs that go back years that people just don't want to close, right? Make sure that, talking to your business and your developers together, clean and scrub those bugs, and, make sure that you get, concrete action items on them. And honestly, remove dated ones that are dated and have no relevance in the system. I got to be honest, this took a significant effort, in the organization here. This was not trivial. Step one was not trivial. It took quite a bit of time. So moving on to step two, narrowing focus. So once we did our bug list and got a better list to go off of, focusing on data integrity. So if you're thinking of, coming up with the commonalities that we spoke of with root cause and resolution, coming up with the commonalities, as far as if something is critical, high, low, superficial. Move open bugs to get them fixed, close bugs for further analysis. And then, the analysis began on the most high or critical and high priority items closed. So, for me, it was, needing to prioritize really, thinking of this step two, prioritizing and focus on a business value growth. So prioritize your bugs, focus on the business value, and analyze. Number three, grouping for priority and criticality. Priority-based grouping. Criticality is the second attribute. We talked about that earlier. Step four, and this is where we're going to start getting into graphs and math. So thinking and reporting. So what QTP, what Jira, what Bugzilla, what, all of the latest, greatest, and things that, are probably on the shelf that I don't know about, as far as defect metric and bug metric reporting, do is they try to think for us, right? Taking a look at the data, taking a look at, the things, that I've showed you thus far, will allow you to think, within the context of your business, and I think that's key. So, the business you're in, and use those heuristics to get what's valuable and actionable. For me at step four, buy-in was everything. I don't think this would have made it past step four without buy-in, Next, constructing reports. And these are key, to having those conversations for buy-in, and I implore you to use something similar, to, relate to your business, to show them how things look as far as bugs. So your first thing you're wondering when you're looking at this is, oh my goodness, I can't believe there's that many bugs. So let me first tell you that these are exaggerated, okay? The numbers are random at this point. And, looking at it, this is the way I really talk to it from a business standpoint. I said, hey, business users or business, these are the closed bugs that we have, meaning these are successes up to this point. We've closed within a time box period. We've closed, 89% of the bugs. We've closed this many highs. We've closed this many mediums and this many lows. So that's a really good one, to talk to your business and show, what the value is and what your breakdown is between those high, mediums, and lows, and where your you can see what the concentration of issues are. Naturally, what the business folks are going to ask you then is, hey, what's a critical? What's a high? You know, what are these different categories that we're looking at? That's when you talk about what we discussed earlier on those common definitions. So next one is the root cause. So when we went over our root causes, I basically presented it this way, you know, with a pie chart. So looking at, you know, the largest portion, you know, of at this particular time in your organization, you know, the coding change was number one, meaning that there was a lot of you know, there was a lot of bugs purely due to the fact that we were changing code, meaning that we were you know, fixing code, we were reevaluating code, we were refactoring code, and then we had a couple migrations in there, you know, as far as our code base moving to higher versions. So you can tell exactly those kind of stories, you know, when you're doing this as well. The first thing you're probably thinking right now is, well, there's a lot of things that are involved in code change, and the answer is yes, there are. You know, and that's the next step down, really, with root cause, is when you can explode out code change to include the specific code changes that have been made. You know, so that's just a step deeper than this this presentation. The next one, you know, I want to call out, working from the bottom up is invalid. You know, that's one of the biggest, you know, things as a test manager or as a QA manager that I can, you know, call out, you know, to my testers and the people who are fulfilling that role of testing, is to talk about invalids. Also requirements. You're going to see, you could see a large spike in your requirement bugs and root cause if, you know, your requirements are missing or they, you know, need more clarification. You know, the next one, browser compatibility. Again, you know, looking at the different browser operating systems and mobile devices that we have out there. You know, duplicates are huge for me. So what that means is that someone found a bug in one of our systems, and they did not look it up to see if there was a duplicate. You know, so for me, you know, duplicates like invalids and requirements, you know, are something that we can control very well. I mean, we can control all this, right? You know, but I think we can control those more, because taking that extra step, you know, to ask a question about a requirement to clarify it, you know, asking further questions of your devs to make sure that you're not looking at it something that's invalid or that should never existed. And then also, you know, looking at your bug list itself or even the software to say, hey, this bug was logged before, because as you can imagine, you know, economically speaking, you know, that's, you know, the opportunity cost just, you know, goes through the roof when you're taking a look with, you know, your developers, if they have to look at those, or if the business has to look at them in a bug scrub, or if they have to look up the code. And then the last one's third parties. You know, so we all work, you know, with most of us in our companies, in our business, we work with third-party vendors. You know, so that's just a you know, a call out that bugs that are specific, you know, to third parties. So this is the way, pretty much the same format, you know, that I showed the business here. You know, the resolution reasons. You know, largest one being fixed, saying that, hey, you know, we had a lot of bugs. It was based on code, and we fixed those. Another, you know, area that goes a step deeper is, what does fixed mean? How did we fix? Did we refactor code? Did we delete code? Where in the code did we make changes? Can we extrapolate, you know, where those changes were at, you know, to create a heat map? Absolutely. You know, so that's another thing, an area for there. Just going through the remainder of the resolutions. Canceled, meaning it shouldn't have existed. Works as designed, you know, that's another one that's big to me, meaning that could be due to a requirement issue, that could be lack of a tester understanding or a person's understanding of the functionality that should be happening, and then also long fixed, duplicate, again, canceled and cannot reproduce. And some of them cannot reproduce ones, you know, they really just can't help it. So, you know, moving on, you know, step 5 after, you know, taking through that is really expanding it to the release or the release structure that you have at your organizations or your builds. You know, so with all the data organized, analyze, build, release information, really defined any commonalities and to start seeing velocity. So this is where the fun, you know, happened in my organization, and that's where the math alert pops out. So if you hate statistics or math, you know, I invite you to, you know, go to a happy place really for the next couple slides, or go ahead and avert your eyes. So basically this will kind of give you an idea and this was in some software, but I put it out in this fashion just so you can see it. And really it broke down into me looking at and analyzing the bugs that were found in a particular month, that were found in pre-production, that were found in production, the total amount of issues, how many required a fix into production, then taking a look at how many stage builds that we had per month, the number of disruptors that my team had, so I'll come back to that, and then the sum, which gave me an overall effectiveness. And basically taking a look at this, the one thing that was really subjective was really this column here, disruptors. So what I was trying to do with that column was to kind of give a non-mathematical or non-quantifiable really item quantity. So I was trying to take a look to see, okay, so how many projects are coming in last minute that are taking my testers away from the projects they're doing, or how many times am I getting in their way, with superficial requests, or is there anything else our business analysts or stakeholders, taking up too much of their time? Any disruptive you could think of, I was trying to add that in, that would really take away from effectiveness. Now, don't get me wrong, so this effectiveness meter has nothing to do with productivity, right? So this has to do with only bugs found. How many bugs we found in pre-production? How many bugs were found in prod? So taking all that data, and moving it into this graph-like format, I want to go through exactly what this meant in the next 5 to 10 minutes or so. So basically, with we see the different colors as far as pre-production. The red with our production bugs, the total release issues, meaning at the organization I'm in, we have releases that contain one or many tickets or items that we launch into production. So quantifying how many of those release issues that we had, and also with respect to complexity. And then also taking a look at number of freeze breaks. So what that means in my organization is how many times our production was disrupted, and then looking at how many stage builds we had per month. So meaning how many times we're actually going into our stage environment with new code. So basically, when you take a look at all this data here, I can really sum it up to a couple different callouts. So what I basically extrapolated here is how many release issues really, as we as an organization, or the QA organization, could handle really at any given staffing levels that would minimize fraud bugs, period. So what the defect, looking at our defect metrics, you can exactly come up with, something, this nature. To how many, like story points, for example, in the Agile mindset, that would minimize your production bugs and increase your stage bugs or your pre-production bugs found. It also showed me, the negative effects of out of process cycle had on an organization, given methodology, any given methodology that you have in place. So out of process cycle meaning someone needs something now, and people, we all know that sometimes businesses and sometimes our, people, our colleagues, want things outside of our, the way we do things or our methodology, that has a, quantifiable negative effect on, the bugs that we find. And that what I also found by doing this analysis was that after a large release, we had subsequent increase in bugs, production bugs over the next, over the next couple months. So, without getting too much into detail on, with a lot of context, because we could have probably another hour session on context as far as what this all means to my business. But basically, you can see, right here, there's really three major callouts here. This one was the largest, release we ever had in our history. Just a little bit of context here. So for my business here at American Greetings, we're greeting cards, right? We're online cards and also physical cards that are in our retailer establishment. So those, are really surrounded by Christmas and Valentine's Day. And this is, represents our pre-Christmas code spike, the one that we launched before Christmas that we just went through. So the staff was very motivated. We saw an increase in stage bugs found, but not still as many I hope to find or meeting pre-production. But the increased efforts led to a decline in prod bugs that month that steadily rose over time. And here, really, this intersection right here was really critical. So the prod bugs really, finally, got to a point where under our prod bugs were finally under our pre-prod bugs, and not so coincidentally our release bugs were also very manageable. So again, the whole point of me showing you this is taking a look at once you get all this data, when you're taking a look at all the defect metrics that we looked at, your root cause, your resolution, and then plugging in the remaining items that we talked about as far as pre-production, prod, and those bugs, you're going to start seeing these commonalities, right? And taking a look at this, you're going to see hopefully some goals. So getting your production bugs well under your pre-production bugs that are found, or even make it crazy enough, right, that you'd have a 0 production bug and all of your bugs found in pre-production. So next one. So after I did all that, so the next step, step 6, was creating actionable items. So what I talked about before about root cause, I looked at duplicates, trimmed those down, looked at any third-party bugs, making relationships there, any invalids, any requirements. Now this is one of the hard parts, for you as a QA analyst or a tester, is holding those accountable and measure at regular intervals. For me it was by major release cycle, but holding those accountable. So if you're seeing a lot of duplicates, a lot of invalids, a lot of requirement issues, speaking with your colleagues and holding people accountable is the key here. And then creating limits. It's okay as us as testers to push back, at our business and with, as long as we have good reason, to create limits for any kind of project release size or complexity that we might be faced with. So step 7 was, creating these health meters, for measuring project and organizational wellness. So the importance is that we can see bugs, in each stage of the software development lifecycle, not just when we're in pre-production or production. So by using, root cause, we can show the business developers where the bugs originate and then set measures to correct the errors. So, for example, if we see, high influx of requirements bugs, we can take steps to understand what the BA or the PO meant. Are the requirements incomplete? Is there a pattern, as far as the same BA or dev? Is there an issue with the exchange of information from a BA to a PM? And all those different touch points, as far as information is concerned within a software development lifecycle. We are empowered, to put controls in place to ensure quality, right? For organizational health. Our business and our leadership is looking to us, as testers and as analysts, to put controls in place to ensure that quality. I empower you to inject yourself earlier in the process, shifting left, or have a QA review and have the BA test the requirements, for example, before it reaches you. So the next one, planning with predictive awareness, it's a marketing term, but I think it kind of applies in this situation. I would say that we can't assume that one release or one project is exactly the same as another, and plan with caution, meaning that if after you do all this work, you're looking at your root causes of resolution, you have a project, and then a business person comes up and says, hey, we have a project coming up in the next 6 months. Here's here's all the requirements that we have. Here's what we need. How many bugs do you think we're going to have? Right. That's what I'm trying to say with this slide. Don't fall into that. Because each project or each thing that you're working on always, because the code is different, always will be different. So caution there. So just to recap, so step one, we want to create our and detect our bug list. Step two, we want to narrow our focus. We want to group. Step three, we want to group our priority and criticality. So that's all within, our bug list and our defects. Step four, which I think is the most critical, really is thinking and reporting. Step five, expanding these things that we have learned and that we've thought about, get buy-in and collaboration to expand our releases and builds, creating actionable items, so not just sitting on the information that you discovered or that you've come up with, but creating actionable items to do something in your organization. And then, establish meters, right? Establish meters, within your organization as far as health. So how many production bugs is okay? I think everybody might have laughed and said, well, none. But honestly, in enterprise applications with large companies, production bugs do exist. So what is that amount of production bugs that we are willing as an organization to handle? Or how many bugs, how many criticals or highs are we willing to handle in our pre-production environment? A lot of good conversations come out of that. Planning with predictive, awareness. And, I think, my opinion, using, the 8 steps that I showed you, along with, all of those, all the defect, the root cause and the resolution analysis in the beginning, to kind of set the table for us. If you have not, I would urge you to use this, to create the beginnings of a meaningful metric practice for organization, and I think it's regardless of the software that you use, and apply, each step of these to your process to measure effectiveness of your testing your people. Ensure that your root causes are exposed to find issues with your coding standards, or most likely your process. To keep criticality and priority kind of as cursory issues, not the same one. Creating action items along the way. Definitely, and to show the value of your organization. And lastly, I would tell you, do not be afraid to speak up. Do not be afraid to try and make a difference in your organization. And that is all I have. Thank you very much. Are there any questions that I can answer for you, or with that method?
Yes, thank you so much, David. Measurement and metrics is actually a very misunderstood and area, but at the same time, so much needed one. So thank you for your time. And we do have some questions. We'll quickly take them.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So the first one is, what is invalid for root cause? Maybe some examples of that, please.
Oh, absolutely. Let me take a look. As far as invalid, so what basically, where that, so it's really 2 ways to answer that question. So where that originated, as far as invalid, is when a person would go in, and test, and the situation or the test case was invalid. So what this one developed, this was several years back, where there was a communication problem between the requirements and also, our test, the BAs who were doing the requirements and the testers. So invalid meaning that the test case simply wasn't valid, meaning that the bug was then invalid. And that one was actually one of the easiest ones. Once that root cause was uncovered, that one was very easy, over time to fix, because then we could, increase collaboration between our QAs and devs, and then also get better test cases as a result. So those invalid bugs. Good question.
Thanks. Thanks, David. The next question is, do you use work as designed resolution for training opportunities to help the testers to understand better the system under test? Like, who determines the decision to make the resolution works as designed? Developers or testers or project managers?
Yeah, it's like you were reading my mind on that one. So yeah, that's exactly what we use it for. So let me give you an example. With a new project, let's pretend I have a new project coming up, and this has happened in the past, where I have a new project, and let's say I have to hire 2 or 3 testers. So as people are, getting accustomed to the way that we test here and the computer is interactive, getting used to the system, and then also seeing how the features, and functions are coming for a particular project. Absolutely, there's a spike in works in design when new people start or when there's any kind of learning curve. And then honestly, when you track these things over time, you can see, when new associates or people join your organization, they're being trained, the works as design goes up, you can review those with your people. And then as they're, people are more comfortable and they're testing more efficiently and they understand, the requirements and have better collaboration, you can see those works as designs go right down. That's a good call out. We do use those as training.
Thank you, David. There's another question which says, how does cancelled differ from other resolutions? I believe there would be other resolutions which would be something like where you are maybe invalidating the defect. So this is asked because I don't know which other resolutions you had where they are comparing the cancelled to, but.
Oh, right. And canceled, so canceled was one that we honestly that we went back and forth with, and the reason why is because when we took a look at that, me personally, I don't like to cancel bugs because I think that that we can learn something from all of them. That even if it might produce a negative test case or it might produce a new requirement, but it came down to there were simply some bugs that were canceled out mainly due to legacy projects that were no longer valid on our system that simply were just canceled. So I hope that helps, but that was more, one of omission on our part because of legacy items. Meaning canceled.
Fair, makes sense.
It never would exist in the future.
Fair. So, and there's another question. Did you run into obstacles gaining by buy-in? And if so, what were those and how did you overcome them?
Could you answer? You broke up. Could you ask that again, please?
Yes, sorry. So it says, can you hear me proper?
I can.
Okay, good. So did you run into obstacles gaining buy-in? And if so, what were those and how did you overcome them? You mentioned buying in for people to buy into the metrics is most important.
It was, yes, I can share with you, some of the conversations that I had at that point in time, and that was a big deal. So as far as getting buy-in, it was difficult with the categories, so taking a look at, the different, the root cause and the resolution categories. So for example, the requirement one definitely was one that was hard to get buy-in on because there's so many, when we're speaking of high-level categories, you're taking into account all the things that could come along with the requirements, for example, incomplete, incorrect. Then it gets kind of a fuzzy area because misinterpret, and also taking a look at that. So getting buy-in on those high-level categories were the biggest thing. And once everyone agreed, on those different root causes and on the different resolutions, it made it a lot easier to get buy-in from the business. Because everyone, on a project team or in the QA organization, then could answer, the questions on that. So if someone in the business or one of our customers said, hey, I saw that we had a bunch of requirement, bugs in our last release, can you tell me about that? So everybody had the same definition. So yeah, buy-in was, and I'm summing this up into what, a minute or a minute and a half explanation, but buy-in took a long time, because, as I indicated, there was a lot of, different groups in the organization that, had a lot of, very strong held beliefs, on the way bug metrics should be reported, what should be classified as a requirement or, an environmental bug or, a bug that, was simply, due to browser compatibility. So it did take a long time. But I would say talk it through and, make sure that you, agree on your categories.
Oh, okay, great. So the next question is, do you use some tools which automatically collect, analyze, and report on quality metrics?
Absolutely.
Sounds such a dangerous question.
So, that's a fair question. So I built this presentation really in two ways. One, to show the ease of how you can create this if you have no tools. So I took that approach for this, but the tools that I use daily. At the organization here, we use Jira, a lot of Jira querying. We also have a data warehouse. So we're creating queries that extrapolate root cause and resolution, priority, criticality, from the different Jira entries, and arranging them in pretty much any fashion on our dashboards within our data warehouse. And actually, we run a program called ClickView that I use to basically slice the data in different ways so I can pull out the results.
Yeah. I'll just add my 2 cents here, David, if it's okay with you.
Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. See, the thought of having a lot of these metrics being automated, sometimes it seems dangerous to me. I truly believe that besides the numbers and the counts, and just like you mentioned earlier during your resolution slide and root causes thing, that there has to be the story of the metrics also associated with it. So though we could actually pull out numbers and do all kind of collection automatically, but when we are doing the analysis and reporting it, it's doubtful that all of it could become like totally automated. I think it would be
Correct.
good if we study them and kind of give the analysis in detail with respect to business risks and impacts.
Correct. And I think, just to add, I think, from at least my experience here is, we have great tools out there that give us all the data we need, that is presented from us. But really, I think it takes us, as people and as testers, analysts, human beings, to take a look at all that different data, and come upon, actionable items and, what does all this data mean for, me as a tester or my testing organization, and then also what does it mean, more importantly, to my business.
Absolutely, yes. And I saw you mentioned that in your starting slides that you have to have the context and make it more actionable. Yeah, yeah. So our next question, David, is do you know of any templates available for tracking defect metrics and where we can access them? We are trying to present status using Tableau for dashboards.
I do. So I do have some defect metric templates. So I would say that I can get those to you, or to whoever answered that question, or basically can forward them. If it's me that has given the information, I can supply some good templates on that.
Sure. So Sherry has asked it, and surely if you can publish that with the responses, then we will share it with her.
That'd be great. Thank you.
And our next question is, okay, so it's Marina, and she says, thank you very much for your presentation, David. But for curiosity, what exactly, okay, she's wanting to understand what do you test at American Greetings? And in your opinion, what's the best way for tester to learn automated tool? Okay.
Oh, okay. So what do we test in American Greetings? So I'll take that in two parts. So what do we test in American Greetings? We test so my group is responsible for every single user-facing site app or system, which includes AmericanGreetings.com, BlueMountain.com, JackieLawson.com, and JustLink.com, and mobile applications of those sites as well. So really my team is focused on really the three major things. One, automated testing, using Selenium WebDriver and also JetSpot. Two, using traditional manual testing methods that would consist of requirements analysis, test case creation, and also test plan creation, more of the project management side of QA. And then lastly, which is kind of new in our organization here, is using the time box exploratory test method, for executing test scenarios in a time box fashion. And the second part was what automation, what automation that I think that would, I apologize. Smita, the second part was the automation that we use or automation that I would recommend?
Yeah, automation that you would recommend.
Oh, I think Selenium WebDriver by far is the standard. And then I think when I take a look at QA organizations, that I'm at least in the area or the areas that I've been subject to, that seems to be the lowest amount of learning curve, especially starting out with Selenium IDE and then moving your way up, to Selenium, possibly using Selenium with Python, or even with Java has been a relatively slow learning curve. But learning those languages as much as possible, I think, is key.
Okay, so we still have quite a few questions, David. I'll quickly ask you a couple more, one or two,
Sure.
And then the rest ones I'm going to email you, and you can send us the response for us to publish.
Sure.
So quickly, who decides root cause?
Who? So root cause, as far as that would be the developer and the QA together. But typically, I mean, once you've instituted a root cause a process and you've had discussions on it and definition, for example, and have wiki pages out there on it, usually, it comes down to a lot of times it'll be, just the QAs. But we've been running this method for probably 3 to 4 years or more. But to start off, it was a collaborative effort. And even if you want to use, like Jira or, one of the other workflow systems, you can do that to say, a QA would put the root cause as, duplicate, and then it would assign the bug ticket over to a developer who could, agree. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of workflow items you could do automatically as well.
Mm-hmm. So do you use some particular technique for RCA?
Do I use any particular technique for
root cause analysis? For the root cause analysis.
Yeah. No particular method, that we employ directly, but it's more, of just a collection of, the collection of what issues that we're finding and then analyzing those actionable things to make sure we're not repeating. So for example, when I talked about, environmental, third party is a great example. So let's say you have a third party partner that you're working with, that maybe you're seeing production bugs coming from them, or you're seeing downtime coming from their, be it a software as a service, for example. You can use those those repositories to make those bugs and make a better conversation, between you and that vendor, and then thus decreasing those third party bugs over time.
Okay, so David, yes, you did, and there are still questions flowing in, and quite a few of them are around defect metrics, but we have really ran out of time. So sorry, guys. Okay. What we are going to do is we're going to email all the questions to David, and once you send us the response, we'll publish it at our training site, softwaretestpro.com. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Okay. All right. So thank you, David. Thanks for your time today. It was a very insightful session on bug metrics, and many thanks for sharing examples from real life projects. Actually, that really helps a lot. And love the audience questions and engagement. So I'm sure our attendees found it very informative and useful too. So thanks again, David, and I hope to see you in California.
All right. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Yeah. So, well, everyone, this concludes our webinar for today. Thank you for joining in, and many more thanks for being so engaging and asking so many questions and making the most of the webinar for yourself and for the whole group. Stay tuned for more webinars and online trainings coming soon at softwaretestpro.com. Thank you, everyone. Have a great week ahead. See you all in California in April 2018.